I've seen people been taken aback by this movie and found it very depressing, which really wasn't my experience.
It was mine because I've gone through a divorce. So you're talking about like something really gut punching you.
Yeah.
And it's an experience that is valuable. It's not enjoyable. It's not, you're not sitting there with popcorn, you know, it's not an Avengers movie or something like that. But as somebody who has been through a divorce, been through a custody battle, and done it in Los Angeles County, 99% of this movie rang true to me as to what that experience was.
It's a very nuanced movie. And on the last discussion, when we was talking about Infamy, I mentioned that I want you to talk about another movie that people say this movie was kind of aping off. You know, there was another movie that was made with featuring Dustin Hoffman and Meryl Streep that was very popular about a divorce as well, Kramer versus Kramer. And, you know, that movie sparked a discussion. I believe it was made in 1979, and it was about this divorce, again, about this married couple. And that movie, I rewatched it recently, again, because it's so well loved. And I think I watched it when I was a kid, but I didn't really appreciate it until now. And watching that and then watching this, I don't think Kramer versus Kramer ages that well, especially because I think one of the main points it comes away with is that, you know, men can be parents too. The justice system, when it deals with custody of a child, it leans towards a woman. And, you know, Dustin Hoffman raises his son, and it's, you know, I think a lot of these two films touch on both things, but I feel like this film is a lot more updated, a lot more honest, and I felt like Kramer versus Kramer has a bit of more of an agenda than this one. I think this movie is a lot more honest and fair and true, and I think the director just really wanted to cut to the meat of the movie, the actual focus of these characters and their relationship.
You were saying Kramer versus Kramer had sort of an agenda. This doesn't. I think that there's people that you lean more towards their side depending on your own experiences. I was much more sympathetic to Adam Driver than I was to Scarlett Johansson, which is probably completely colored by my own experiences. I would imagine that there's other people whose perspective differs from mine, and they would be more sympathetic towards her and see him more as a jerk. But yeah, both of them, you know, coming off of these big Disney franchises, and showing that they can act, and showing that because they do the big giant blockbuster movies and they get these huge paychecks to do it, they then turn around and I'm sure neither one of them made $20 million to be in this movie. They had to have taken huge pay cuts to do this. But when you're in Star Wars or when you're in a Marvel movie, you can take the time to do that. And, you know, you don't have to worry about paying for your mansion or whatever.
The director, which I'm gonna play a clip from the director in a moment, Noah Baumbach, I'm just gonna say, he said that he was writing the movie for these two in tow. He wanted to do a movie. Well, actually, you know, why don't I play the clip? I got the clip here, and then I'll say some more. Let the director speak for himself.
It's a movie about marriage as seen through divorce. It's also a movie about family as seen through divorce. I felt like this was also a way to kind of more deliberately explore what happens in real life when couples break up.
You don't think Charlie and Nicole will ever get back together?
No, I think this time it's really over.
Friends take sides or things. And in a way, the audience plays the part of the friends in this movie. So like in the beginning of the movie, you're more with her. And I think naturally, because we're with her, your sympathy goes towards her. So you kind of hear more her angle and her side. And then we kind of move over to him. And then maybe you would actually start to sympathize with him too. I felt it was a kind of cinematic way or narrative way to illustrate when people break up, which is nobody's fault. It's just something that didn't work out.
I had I guess I didn't save the clip, but he was talking about the conception of the movie when he was writing it. He as he was writing it, scene by scene, he was lending the script to Scarlett Johansson and Adam Driver, letting them read, do you guys like it? And it was developing with them. So this wasn't something he had on the side and called them afterwards. He was developing it with them. They spent time together to develop the movie together. So they had the chemistry and they just had that unit that you see on screen and you believe. And that's good to hear because it comes across through the movie as well. And again, when I finished the movie, as I was watching the movie, I found myself just thinking about my own past, thinking about my mum and dad, arguing, getting married very late, and then never really divorcing, but always threatening it. And then my brothers and sisters having multiple divorces. I would see them argue. I would look after my nephews. I would go to court. And it just made me cynical. It made me cynical. So watching this movie, it didn't depress me because I look at marriage in a very cynical way. My ex-girlfriend will tell you that as well.
So as will a couple of mine. Yeah.
So I just thought, this is real. I've seen this. I feel this. It was interesting seeing, I haven't been through it myself. So the parts that were interesting to me was seeing it through the perspective of hiring lawyers and what it's like to actually bring out dirt against your ex and using it to get leverage, to fight for children. Those scenes are not pleasant to watch. And it's great to see the emotion of the characters doing what they have to do and fighting with it and trying to be friends, and trying to be considerate, but then fighting for their own corner. And that's what I love about this movie, the nuance in that, because I think it's real. I think back in the day, when you watch Kramer versus Kramer, for example, they have a similar court scene between Meryl Streep and Dustin Hoffman. The lawyers are arguing and looking at each other. The lawyers are saying the horrible things that they told the lawyers, and they're looking at each other. They have this same kind of scene in this movie. But again, that movie has a bit more of an agenda where it's, the woman always gets the child and now the man's going to get the child at the end and you're going to see why. But this movie is not about that. It's about learning about their relationship. I think, like the director just said, you spend, it's showcased on one character for a lot of the film, then it shifts to the other one. And then by the end, you kind of hit the middle ground. And I didn't actually, it's kind of funny because you said you sided more with Adam Driver. By the end, I just felt to myself, I kind of see where you're both coming from. Adam Driver's character, what was written for him, doesn't paint him as the best person when you just look at the facts objectively. He seems a bit more selfish and a bit more focused. And as the movie goes on and he starts to, realize what he's losing, and as the core battle goes on and he starts to realize what he has to do, she's throwing things at him about how he didn't see this and how she sacrificed parts of her life for him and how he wouldn't compromise on certain things that move into certain areas. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. So I came away from the movie thinking it just fell apart. And I think I can see where they're both coming from. I don't really take a side. And because I've lived that life where, my brother and even one of my best friends is going through a divorce right now. I love my friend. I grew up with my friend for 20 years. But his wife, I consider her a friend. She's got the kids. So I'm meant to see him as the villain. But in reality, I can see why they broke up. So, life is grey. So I can't come away from this movie liking or hating one another because life is just not that simple. And I think that's a testament to the writing where I just came away from the movie saying, yeah, that's life, man. What can you say? It was just a good, honest performance.
Yeah, the way that I looked at it, and the movie starts with them already broken up. So you don't ever see them as a couple. So really what you know about them as a couple is what the other person is saying. So we're seeing that he's selfish because she's telling us that he's selfish. And at least from what I could gather from what he was saying and from Scarlett Johansson's performance, she never really asserted herself until she said, I want a divorce.
Yes.
And, if she had, I kept thinking, are they going to tell me that they went to counseling together? Or they, that she said, we're going to do this or else. Did she ever try to lay down the law? Did she ever say, if we don't move to LA, that I'm going to leave you? Instead, it just sounds like she was really bad at telling him what she wanted. And he knew what he wanted, and she didn't. You know, she keeps saying, I did what he wanted to do. And it, you know, what I got from it was not because he was saying this is the way it's going to be, but because she didn't know what she wanted it to be. So he was making the decisions because she was letting him.